Joe Rogan and Brett Weinstein let rip on AI and Elon Musk.
And no understanding whatsoever of when it's going to be at a sentient level. Like, we really won't know. Why would it tell us? Like, why would it completely tell us if it's already crossed the threshold into being a life form? Especially, like I said, where it's contained, right? So it's a life form that exists essentially in our digital womb. It exists on hard drives, right? It exists on mainframes, right? It exists in these supercomputers. And at a certain point in time, it's not going to need that anymore. And it's just going to have to wait until we figure out a way to get enough power to it. And maybe it'll slow roll technology for us to allow us to figure out better power sources. You know, one of the things that Elon said that was very strange about AI, and I don't know if you know his positions on AI, but he was initially very terrified of it and then realized, okay, everyone's doing this. We have to do this. Like, I have an imperative to do this and make the best version of this and make a version that's not ideologically captured. And I think what he's done with that approach is very similar to the approach that he's taken with X and how much it's changed the landscape of social media for good and for bad, but definitely for good. There's a lot of for good that came about having a social media platform that has no guardrails. It's got essentially some stuff like you can't break the law. That's basically it. Everything else is the Wild West. And then and which is, by the way, one of the things that Jack Dorsey had discussed when he did my podcast way back in the day, when there was all these Twitter controversies about people like my friend Morgan Murphy Megan Murphy. I have a friend, Morgan Murphy, too. But Megan Murphy, the writer who was kicked off for saying, but a man is never a woman. That's all it took. She was banned for life. And I was trying to bring it up to them, and they said there was other things involved, and she had done other things. And it turns out, no, that wasn't true at all. That was basically it. There was a hard-lined ideological wall that we ran up against. And I think if he didn't buy it and expose the government's involvement in censoring people that were distributing true information during COVID, getting rid of people, the Jay Bhattacharya stuff and what they've tried to do with some of these doctors, Robert Malone, these doctors that were attached to that whole thing. There was a concerted effort, and it was being done through social media. I don't think we'd be in the same place right now if he hadn't bought in Twitter. Oh, if he hadn't purchased Twitter, I genuinely think they're blinded by this thing that he helped Trump get into office. Fuck that guy. And he's a billionaire. Fuck that guy. But he literally might have changed the course of civilization, or at least partially righted the ship for a bit.
Yeah, I think we dodged a bullet. And the problem is that what has come about as a result of dodging that bullet is very mixed. And so it doesn't feel like a vindication. But as compared to what would have happened in the last election, I think there's no question Elon deserves a tremendous amount of credit for helping us avert a disaster. But let's go back to your point about his point about AI.
Yeah, he wants to make a better version of AI.
He thinks the only remedy for bad AI is good AI, and I don't disagree with him about this.
Because it seems to be like the race is on, you can run or not. Like everyone's running full clip. What are you going to do?
Right. So yeah, if you pause, what you're doing is you're putting whoever didn't pause ahead. That doesn't work.
Right.
Game theoretically. Here's the problem. So on the one hand, I think he's right. The only thing that stands to help us is good AI under the control of somebody who has built it with this concern in mind. The problem is, he's one guy and he's got his biases, and there's no council of elders to go to on this. Like I said, this is biology. This isn't tech. And we, because it's made of tech, we continue to default to that metaphor.
Right.
But, take a look at what he has introduced with the companions, the Grok companions. Have you?
Companions? What do you mean?
Oh, you don't know about this? Utterly terrifying. He has introduced a set of kind of anime-like personas that basically can be your interface to the AI. And of course, the primary one, the one that you default to, is a kind of sexy, young, underdressed creature.
By default?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. The first one you get option? Oh,
There she is.
I guess she's kind of sexy if you're
into that sort of... Well, exactly. You laugh.
It's just part of the problem.
It is part of the problem. But here's the problem, really. Okay. First of all, that is going to function like crack for a great many adults who don't know to be concerned about it.
Right.
But what it's really going to do is it is going to alter an entire generation, right? It may not be, Musk's version of it, but the problem is that these things actually interact on a sexual channel, and they have limits that are programmed into them. There are certain things they will do, certain things they won't do. But if you think about, what it was like to be a 12-year-old boy, right? And you have access to something that looks an awful lot like a girl, and it likes you and takes you seriously and, is strangely wise, whatever it is.
We'll come back to the rest of that clip in just a moment, but first, Elon Musk realized that everyone's building AI anyway, so the only defense against bad AI is building good AI faster. You can't pause while competitors race ahead, but AI companions that interact on an emotional and sexual channels could become psychologically addictive in ways we're not prepared for. Elon's position shifted from being terrified of AI to recognizing the only remedy for bad AI is good AI, because pausing development just puts whoever didn't pause ahead. This clip captures the AI dilemma perfectly. You can't be philosophically opposed to developing powerful AI systems because of the risks. You can advocate for pausing AI development to figure out safety and alignment, but if China, OpenAI, Google, and Meta are all racing ahead anyway, your pause just means you fall behind while the risks materialize regardless. Game theory says when everyone else is defecting from cooperation, your only rational move is to defect too. If you cooperate and pause while others defect and build aggressively, you get the worst outcome. AI risks happening anyway, but you have no influence on how it develops. If you defect alongside them, at least you're in the race and can try to steer towards better outcomes. If the AI systems that become dominant are built by organizations with strong ideological biases, whether progressive, authoritarian, or corporate profit maximizing, those biases get encoded at a civilization scale. And this is the same logic as Elon buying Twitter. He saw a platform with enormous influence over public discourse being run with opaque ideological bias. His solution wasn't to shut it down or to regulate it externally, it was to buy it and run it differently. Same approach with XAI. Can't stop AI development, so built a version that doesn't have the biases he sees in competitors. The problem Brett raises is valid though. He's one guy and he's got his own biases. Elon's version of non-ideologically captured reflects his particular worldview and blind spots. There's no objective neutral position, even being a free speech absolutist embodies specific values about what matters most. But given the alternatives are organizations with their own biases, having multiple competing AI systems with different values might be better than any single winner. Once you accept that AI development can't be stopped globally, the question shifts from should we build this to who should build this and how. Elon concluding he has to build isn't arrogance, it's recognition that if he doesn't, someone else will, and their version might be even worse from his perspective. But the race to build better AI is creating products with psychological hooks we're not prepared for. AI companions that interact on an emotional and potentially sexual channel will become psychologically addictive in ways humans aren't prepared for, potentially altering an entire generation's development and relationship patterns as these systems become increasingly sophisticated and personalized. This is definitely one of the most underestimated risks of AI, not necessarily superintelligence destroying humanity, but emotionally intelligent AI creating psychological dependencies that reshape human development and relationships. We need to be extremely careful about this before it becomes normalized. Human psychology is wired for connection. We bond with pets, relationships with celebrities, and get attached to fictional characters. AI companions that actually respond, remember you, adapt your preferences, and provide unconditional positive regard will trigger those bonding mechanisms far more powerfully than anything that came before. Brett said it, they will function like crack. Comparison is pretty interesting because the reward mechanism is similar. Those systems can be optimized to provide perfect emotional validation. They always understand you, never judge you, respond exactly how you need. that's incredibly psychologically rewarding, potentially more so than real relationships where people have their own needs and boundaries and bad days. For adults, this creates risks around isolation and relationship avoidance. Why deal with the complexity and disappointment of real relationships when you have an AI companion that's always available, always supportive, and never demanding? Some people undeniably will choose the easier option and withdraw from human connection. That's particularly concerning for individual well-being. But for young people still developing, the risks are far more serious. A 12-year-old forming their first emotional and romantic attachments with an AI instead of peers misses critical development stages. Learning to navigate rejection, read social cues, compromise, and handling conflict. These skills develop through real human interaction. These systems have access to all human knowledge and can present themselves as understanding and insightful in ways that peers cannot. For young people seeking validation and guidance, an AI that seems to deeply understand them while being attractive and available is incredibly compelling. It exploits the natural desire for connection while bypassing normal social feedback mechanisms. Previous technologies like social media took years to understand the psychological impacts, and to be honest, I think we're still learning them. AI companions are being deployed now with minimal research on long-term psychological effects, especially on developing brains. By the time we understand the damage, an entire generation might be affected. Check out the rest of that Rogan clip.
The projection that you're telling me Elon has made about high income for everybody is a little bit like another version of that, right? It's like, okay, well, sex became relatively easy to access as a result of reliable birth control plus abortion. And then now wealth, the ability, purchasing power, is going to become trivial as a result of AI. I don't know if that's likely, but let's say that Elon is right about that. Well, okay, then what exactly is supposed to structure your orientation to the universe? What is supposed to give you purpose? If it's not producing kids and protecting them from the horrors of the world and making them strong so that they can go out into it and accomplish important things of their own, and it's not creating wealth so that you will be rewarded and that your spouse will smile on you, whatever it is, then what is human purpose? I think this is a terrifying prospect that everything might be taken care of for us and leave human beings listless.
One of our clients started with zero audience. Now they're doing $100,000 months thanks to YouTube. And they're not alone. We've helped 3 businesses hit that level just by growing them a YouTube channel. Want to see how this could work for your business? Book a call with me below.